My name is Rick. I'm a family member. Jean's father and my grandfather were first cousins. And when they moved here, we got to know them very well and we became close. On Tuesday night, late on Tuesday night, after I had heard about Yoram passing, I wrote this note to Nadav for him and the family. I'd been at the hospital up until about 6, and I guess I heard it a little bit after 7 that Yoram passed away. Nadav, I don't know how to express the deep sadness I'm feeling. It's not easy to put into words. In some instances, for some tragedies, there are words, or there may be some kind of sense or logic. For this, there's no sense or logic. I've never believed in God. When I was a kid, I went through the motions, and when I was old enough to think about it, I chose instead to believe in nature. Men like your father study my God, and they come closer to theologians than any theologian I've ever met or read. And when they are great as your father was, they approach forms of wisdom, goodness, and serenity that can only be approached by great minds that are kind and good and selfless. They don't seek power, they seek knowledge, and they don't use force. They mentor, and they teach, and they share. I never saw your father when he wasn't smiling. That was perhaps the benefit of seeing him at a family party, but I suspect he smiled more than anyone I've ever known. He radiated light. Few people do, but he truly radiated light. And he was brilliant, and few are that, but he was truly brilliant. And yet he never made me feel ridiculous when I'd ask him the most fundamental questions. He would answer and elucidate and bring me to another level of understanding. Most of our conversations would take place while we were nursing a drink. Casual conversations. In the last few days, I've met some of his Goddard colleagues, and I've wondered what amazing things they've talked about under more serious circumstances. What wonders they've seen, what data, what answers to what questions, and what intellectual risks they've taken. It's a bold group, Nadav, sweet and gentle, but very bold. And there's an amazing form of energy around them. And yet, what has struck me the most as I've seen you in the last few days is your strength and your wisdom and your brilliance. And I've realized that above all, he was a magnificent father and husband. And I've realized that he imparted it all to all of you. All the depth, all the kindness, and all the wisdom. As painful as this is, and as painful as it will continue to be, you've been lucky to have been his son. Most of the world doesn't get to live near such radiance, much less to have it in their father. I can tell you this because you and I are brothers in this sense, lucky to have had fathers like we did. Yoram is in you. He is in you, and you will always be able to hear his voice and see his face. I promise you that. I know this hurts, though I cannot imagine how much. I had time to process my father's death, years, months, and ultimately days and hours. And you have not had that time. And I wish I could make that change. So there are many layers to this tragedy. The loss, the suddenness of the loss, the beauty of your parents' marriage, Daphne's pregnancy, and yet the damn sun's going to rise tomorrow. Sometimes I've had moments of just wanting to keep it from coming up for a few days, and this is one of those moments. I just want the planet to stop spinning for a few days so that it can acknowledge one of its greatest inhabitants. Of course, your father wouldn't want that. He'd want it to keep spinning, and even though I don't know how I'm going to bring myself to smile, when I do smile, I'm going to think about Yoram Kaufman, one of the greatest smilers I've ever known. I'm going to smile, and I'm going to think about him. Please read this to your mother and sister for me. I love you all very deeply. And now, Amy will speak.